There's been a lot of work in Brussels in particular. We had a meeting just last week with Nellie Crow's office. Nellie is she was the competition commissioner and is now responsible for IT. We've had Vivian Redding, who was the IT commissioner, support some of our conferences. So in Brussels and through to national governments. The things we do things like this. The introduction for here came from a stand that we had at the Vet Show in London last month, where Neil left some of the Open Forum Europe people. We speak at conferences, we make submissions, made submissions recently, strong submissions on the European interoperability framework. And myself, Neil introduced me earlier, I'm a non-executive director of Open Forum Europe since about 2005. I've been in some way or other associated with open source since about 95 when we used Linux on some projects out in California. I founded this open app company in 2002. So I'm a contributor in the space for making a living out of open source software. Okay, I think that's actually surprised I've gone a little bit over my time. Sorry about that, guys. I've gone to about 40 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks a million, Mel. That was brilliant. We have a few questions that have just been kind of streaming through. Can you see them in the chat, or do you want me to shout them out to you?
Let me just see if I can find the chat.
I can shout if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
So from Killian Byrne, he's saying, is there kind of a perception that software you get for free is of low quality and just best to avoid it? And is that kind of a barrier you've seen?
Yes, yeah, I think that is a barrier. But it's a barrier more with the uninitiated. You know, it's people who are in the software world wouldn't think that. You know, they wouldn't think something like Apache is the best web server out there by more than a country mile. So there's that kind of general throwaway remark. But somebody who would say that to you probably isn't somebody who knows much about software, much about the application. So, you know, I do know guys maybe who work, say, maybe people who work at Oracle and only work in Oracle. You know, so they tell me they're IT guys, but they don't have a PC at home. They don't bring their laptop with them. Like in the space I'm in, that we participate in looking at the software all the time, and people who like IT are typically doing that. So I think people who like or play in IT wouldn't have that perception. I don't know, does that help?
Yeah, that's great. We've also, Morris Bond here says, seems the education system in Ireland is a difficult area to implement any kind of change. Computer science is still not a leading cert subject, which highlights the complete lack of knowledge or desire to change old traditional approaches of teaching. So he's basically asking, will secondary schools or even primary schools embrace e-learning technologies, or do you feel there is a certain amount of fear of implementing these technologies?
My perception is just fear. And probably some of it may be valid because some of this stuff can be distracting. Probably, you know, to educators, they probably find some of the tools can be distracting. But I think also there's an acceptance. If I talk to people and they say, oh sure, I wouldn't know anything about that, and that's supposed to be okay. I look at them and say, well, you should know something about that. You know, if you're in this space, like the teachers in Korea know something about it, the teachers in Japan know something about it, the teachers in India know a lot about this stuff. You know, they make it their business too, and that's what's making them competitive. So, you know, I think there's an acceptance that, oh, we don't know anything about this, and, you know, that's okay. I think that's an acceptance that we should banish. You know, people with responsibility for these things should start to know. And, you know, I think Morris's point about computer science being on the leading cert, it absolutely should be on the leading cert. You know, and we should find a way to make it relevant and teach it, not to teach products, but to teach an understanding of this way of thinking. One of the discussions we had in Belfast at the conference recently was about, in the health space, health informaticians as we call them, the people who understand data models and how to query data and how to find, you know, how many children with this type of diabetes, blah, blah, blah. You know, how do you answer these kind of questions? You need what we were calling a health informatician, and that's an awful bloody name, but and in some of the hospitals, we have nurses that train into this way of thinking, and it's very important going forward that we know how to do it. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll take just 2 or 3 more. Just 1 second. So we have Mike is just asking, could the money saved in licenses in schools pay a salary possibly to an IT person who specialized in open source software?
I don't know how much schools actually pay in licenses. I certainly think some schools should try it. I think there should be serious pilot projects around the country to make this work. Because I would believe that it's only within the system that you can really understand your own issues. And it's from teachers talking to other teachers, talking to schools. So I think some schools should be supported to do those exercises. It's very difficult to say, it's difficult to know what people actually spend. There is talk of this big sum of money the Battle Keep announced before Christmas, 22 million that was supposed to be spent, and 150 million over a number of years. But the thinking there seems to be to just buy laptops, or maybe we'll be buying the whiteboard. So it's to do the capital piece. But that doesn't move on the engagement of teachers in the subject, bar their own personal investment, their own personal time and enthusiasm, I think. I'm sure that answers the question.
Margaret Keane is asking, is there any open source alternative that you know of to TechSmith Camtasia? That's the recording software.
I use one called Wink, W-I-N-K. It's not as nice as Camtasia, but it's not bad. And there is another one now, and I'm sorry, Margaret, it's not coming to mind. Yes, I've used another one, but Wink is probably the best that I know of.
Okay, thanks for that. Niall Deviney is asking, have you heard of any studies that have studied the acceptance of OSS among adult education in terms of replacing software that people may have been used to using?
No, I actually haven't, because we did try to push this product that we made ourselves, which was an accredited training material in OpenOffice. We have offered that for free to a number of adult education organisations. Actually not in Ireland, some in the Middle East and that. So I've been watching the space, but I haven't seen anything.
Okay. Let me think, have we any more here? Peter McKay says, I'm surprised at how few teachers know about OSS. Is there any move to enlighten the ICT sections of the teacher training institutions?
I know from an Open Ireland perspective, we had this organisation. I say had, it still exists, but we're not doing a whole lot. A lot of these things tend to fall on individuals, but we did make what I would consider to be a reasonably decent submission to the NCTE. And some of the slides that I presented there today were part of that submission. They were developed by a guy called Declan Jones, who's an ex-Fujitsu, was part of our group. But we never managed to get to meet with NCTE on the subject. I was asked also to make a submission to Battle Keep's Technology Committee back around September or so. This is the group that recommended that they spend money in schools. But I actually turned down the opportunity because I felt that it was very vendor dominated. If that pulls together a committee, it's chaired by Microsoft. He's got British Telecom, he's got Dell, he's got IBM, Lenovo. I think it was maybe one smaller organisation, but it was the American corporates. So just in not wanting to be a little dog chasing the car, I decided, I'm not pitching something in here because it's not fertile ground for the thinking. I do a lot of work with the Blackrock Education Centre, and they are very aware of this. Like I say, between us, we invested quite a lot of money in the training for ECDL, accredited training material for OpenOffice. Like I say, it hasn't been very commercially successful out there. But I would say some of the training organisations know about it. But it's not on your curriculum, it's not on the agenda, so I don't know that the demands coming out of the system isn't demanding it of them.